Okay, you guys, let's get going on example A. Example A is pretty much the same thing. There's just one little itty bitty catch we need to talk about. Guys, so whenever you're factoring, we never like the leading coefficient to be negative. Usually, if your leading coefficient's negative, it's really hard to get your answer in its most simplified form. Okay, so if you ever spot that your leading coefficient is negative, we will want it to transform. Oh no, what happened? Stop it. It paused. Sorry, guys. Anyways, if your leading coefficient is ever negative, we will want it to transform into a positive. Okay, we don't like the leading coefficient to ever be negative. Okay, that will prevent us from getting our answer into its most simplified form usually. Okay, so when we're coming up with the GCF, since GCFs in factoring involves dividing, what can you divide a negative by to get a positive? You do divide a negative by a negative. So my GCF, when we have a leading coefficient that is negative, we need to include a negative in our GCF so that when we divide every single term by our GCF, a negative divided by this negative will transform our leading coefficient into a positive. Okay, so just be careful. If your leading coefficient's ever negative, make sure you also factor out a negative number or include that in your GCF. Okay, so let's look at our numbers. What is the largest number that will divide into 5 and 15? It would be a 5. And again, since our leading coefficient is negative, technically it's a negative 5. So just be careful. All right, and then I don't have a variable in both of my terms. I only have it in the first term. Shucks, right? Okay, so since I don't have a variable in both of my terms, I cannot include it in my GCF. So my GCF is simply just going to be negative 5. And don't forget to include your bestie out in front of your parenthesis. Don't forget about your bestie. That is quite mean if you do that. Don't do that. Okay, and I'm going to take my GCF and divide it into every single term. So negative 5x squared divided, well, let's start by dividing our coefficients. Sorry, guys. So negative 5 divided by negative 5, well, that is a positive 1, which is what we're looking for. We want our leading coefficient when we factor to be positive. So now we're going to have a positive 1 technically in the front. And I don't have anything to divide the x squared by, so technically this is positive 1 x squared, or I'm going to leave it as a positive x squared. So if you guys see here, we ended up with a positive as our leading coefficient, which is our goal. Okay, we have a positive 1. Okay, so again, after we factor, our leading coefficient should be positive. Positive. Watch it. Okay, and then my next one, negative 15 divided by a negative 5, well, that will be a positive 3. And that's all, folks. That's it.